Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com. Here with some thoughts on the heavyweight unification match between David Haye and Wladimir Klitschko that literally is just 1 month away. Now remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. As many know, I consider this fight to be a toss-up. And also, as many know, I consider boxing to be, at the highest levels, math. The motivation of both men should be to be unified heavyweight champion. That's enough motivation, right? What the men think about each other really shouldn't matter. I believe the guys at the top understand that when they're in the ring, they need to worry about what the other guy is doing. Their thoughts need to be on strategy. How am I going to block this left hand? How much distance should I have away from my opponent? How can I pace myself? What round are we in? Am I winning this fight? What do I have to do to win this fight? What did my cornerman tell me? What has worked? What hasn't worked? What adjustments do I need to make? Things like that are what they need to be thinking about. So while I'm enjoying the pre-fight hype, right? The previews of shows like HBO's Face Off, where, Wladimir Klitschko looks across the table at David Haye and says, David Haye is a wannabe. All I can say to all of that is who cares? On fight night, whether or not Wladimir Klitschko thinks that David Haye is a wannabe, or whether or not Wladimir Klitschko thinks that David Haye is a worthy or unworthy opponent, doesn't matter as much as if David Haye hits him upside the head, knocks him unconscious, and takes his share of the heavyweight belt, right? In other words, the opinions these guys have about each other really don't matter. What matters is the strategy in the ring. What I am interested in is when the fighters themselves talk about their own strategy. David Haye has been very eloquent in saying that he believes he's going to be the best athlete that Wladimir Klitschko has ever faced, that he plans to knock out Wladimir Klitschko. That's news to a gambler like me, that I can then say, okay, well, let me look hard at this knockout prop because I know David Haye's not thinking about a decision. Stuff like that matters. But what doesn't matter is when one fighter is saying the other one's a wannabe, doesn't like the way they dress, claims they're a chicken, claims they talk too much. Hey, spare me. Spare me. Just tell me what you're going to do in the fight. And as a gambler, I'll try to figure out if you know what you're doing, if your strategy is sound. So all I could say 1 month out is whatever these guys say, the one thing I know is that both of these guys hit hard, and that while Wladimir Klitschko is the bigger man, and while Wladimir Klitschko does have foot speed, in the early part of fights, he is methodical, right? David Haye likely is going to be the guy who is the more natural fighter in the ring. He's more of a guy who's reactive, right? He's not afraid to use foot speed. He's not afraid to lead with his power hand. I get the feeling that Wladimir Klitschko really doesn't feel comfortable throwing his right hand unless he has first touched you with his jab. And all I could say is one of the open questions in this fight, and it will be answered in the first and second rounds, is whether or not Wladimir Klitschko can touch David Haye with his jab. Can he rely on his jab to set the table to give him timing? Because, and by the way, I don't know the answer to these questions, but even in the Ray Austin fight, you'll notice that before Vladimir Klitschko started throwing left hooks, he had to come in and land that jab first, right? And all I'm saying is David Haye, in his fights, you'll notice distance is paramount. He always is far enough away from his opponent, so even if his opponent throws a jab, it can't touch him, right? Haye, literally, one of his secrets is to disrupt the rhythm of his opponent, right? What Haye is waiting for is an opening where he can literally jump in, his power carries with him, right? Jump in and land power shots. Haye doesn't waste a lot of time with non-power shots. In fact, quite frankly, if you look at Haye's record, in fact, if you look at both of these guys' records, very few of their fights have gone the distance. Haye's fights seem to end earlier than Vladimir's fights. Vladimir seems to be much more mechanical than either David Haye or his brother Vitaly. I will say David Haye, in my opinion, picked the right Klitschko to fight. So I'm looking forward to this fight. I understand the Klitschko crowd believes this is a mismatch. I understand they believe that Vladimir's going to land that left jab. Not so fast. Not so fast. You really have to ask yourself, how well does Vladimir move? Not how well can he move. We saw how he moved in the 12th round against Eddie Chambers, but how fast does he normally move in the first few rounds of fights, even when he's facing stationary opponents? And I would say not well. Let me also make another point, too. Both of these men have been stopped, but only one of these guys has been knocked out. I'm talking about knocked out when they weren't tired, when they were completely alert. I know Carl Thompson stopped David Haye, but David Haye, who was looking good early in that fight, literally exhausted himself, right? Corey Sanders against Wladimir Klitschko, that's a different dynamic. That's not a guy getting tired and then hitting the canvas or getting stopped or having a corner stop the fight. No, that's a guy getting knocked to the canvas early in a fight while he was still, ready to go. And all I could say is, Wladimir Klitschko's chin has to be a concern. He's been stopped more than David Haye, and quite frankly, early in fights, he looks cold. If I had to make one bet in this fight, someone held a gun to my head and said, "What bet would you make in this fight?" I would simply say that I do not believe this fight goes the distance. Looking at the odds, I believe you can get pretty good odds. I believe the straddle that works, I believe, with as little risk as possible for a gambling play, and all gambling plays are extremely risky, is to take both men to win by knockout. Both of these guys, in my opinion, have pacing problems. Understand that fighting both is debilitating, right? I know Vladimir Klitschko has sleepwalked to 12-round fights against people like Sultan Ibragimov, but understand fighting David Haye is depleting because David Haye is like a coiled cobra. He's out there, he's ready to strike. You understand that he has KO power with both hands, so you cannot get distracted. That's draining. You're fighting a guy who's mobile, who's outside, who can take you out with both hands, and who, unlike Vladimir, isn't afraid to lead with his power shot. So the entire fight, you're dealing with a bomb, right? That's very depleting. And keep in mind, if you saw the first Wladimir Klitschko Layman Brewster fight, you'll see Vladimir completely run out of gas in the middle of a fight. He completely runs out of gas. I believe he's not a natural. I believe he's tense in the ring. I believe that his fights are draining. I all I could say is I don't see either guy being able to go the distance against the other. And let me just say this about David Haye. David Haye did move away from Valuev, but most of David Haye's fights involve heavy action, where there's always a moment in the fight where there's a heavy exchange. Because David Haye is looking to jump in. He's an ambush fighter. He's looking to jump in. And all I'm saying is Wladimir Klitschko will be chasing him around the ring, trying to land his jab, trying to use his size to dictate tempo and pace. But make no mistake about this. Throw the size difference out of the ring. Wladimir Klitschko, as big as he is, doesn't lean on you. He doesn't come up on you and make his size an issue. This is not Big George Foreman, right? You've seen big men who let you know they're big men, right? They come in, they hit you, they lean on you. You're feeling 260 pounds or whatever, 250 pounds leaning on you, right? Chris Arreola, right? Comes inside, roughs you up, gets you in the corner, pins you, is leaning on you. You feel his weight. Well, Wladimir Klitschko is actually not that big a heavyweight, right? He weighs like 230 something. And he's not a leaner. He's a long range guy. He hits you with overhand rights, has a big punch. He hits you with left hooks, right? He's not a guy who says, I'm the big man in the ring and I'm going to lean on you. I'm going to push you around. I'm going to make my weight an issue. So I think this is going to be a long range shootout. And let me just say this, David Haye, in my opinion, has no inside game, right? David Haye reminds me of Carl Froch, big punch, big hitter. Inside his game is to just hold you, spin, and back away, right? In the Audley Harrison fight, you'll notice he has Harrison up on the ropes hurt. Rather than come in like Joe Frazier, like a buzzsaw and just take him out, he actually took a step back, allowed Harrison to actually gather his thoughts, get off the ropes, because David Haye does not feel comfortable that up close. So I think it's going to be interesting because you have two guys who want to go at it. Neither of them wants to go at it from up in close. Both of these guys, in my opinion, have stamina problems. They're both going to be tested. I think the play here is to take both the win by KO, right? I do not believe that one of these guys has the edge over the other. Some of the early things that I'm going to look at will be, you know, um, whether Wladimir Klitschko is able to land his jab with any kind of regularity. If the answer is no, he's in trouble. I'm also going to look at, whether, David Haye is able to time Wladimir Klitschko and land any punches early in the fight. Because David Haye, in some fights, the Audley Harrison fight, has actually stood around for a while. But neither of these guys has much of an inside game, in my opinion. Neither of these guys is a body puncher, in my opinion, right? You're looking at two headhunters with KO power and bad stamina. Somebody's getting stopped in this one. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments for me here on YouTube. I have other videos up on this fight. I used to be in Wladimir Klitschko's corner until I watched some of David Haye's recent fights. I give Haye credit. He is definitely a force at the heavyweight division. In fact, I think he's a bit underrated in this fight, as I think this fight is a total toss-up. I can't wait to see it. I will watch the trash talk. I'll enjoy the trash talk. The trash talk has absolutely no relevance, in my opinion, to the math that needs to take place in the ring. And that math is going to involve two guys with heavy punches who are both headhunters, right? Who can't fight inside, who don't really use their weight or size to lean on or bully the other person. So it's going to be an interesting fight. It's going to be a wide open fight. I'm expecting fireworks. Thanks for watching.